second reading comes from the Epistle of the Ephesians. And in this, we hear that the writer of Ephesians encourages us to live a life of wisdom, which means nothing to do with intellectual achievements, but according to the wisdom of God. The author cautions the Ephesians that the days are numbered and that the end is near, a belief that was common among the early Christians. So this text has a sense of urgency about it, which also suggests that we too should listen carefully, for our days are numbered and time is of the essence. Hear this reading from Ephesians 5:15 through 20. Be careful then how you live, not as unwise people, but wise, making the most of time because the days are evil. So do not be foolish and understand what the will of the Lord is. Do not get drunk with wine, for that is debauchery, but be filled with the Spirit, as you sing psalms and hymns and spiritual songs among yourselves, singing and making melody to the Lord in your hearts, giving thanks to God the Father at all times for everything in the name of the Lord Jesus Christ. This is the word of the Lord.
Thanks be to God.
Our culture, for the most part, values intelligence. In fact, in school, usually I think it's around Kristen and Tanya's not here. Maybe it's around the 3rd or 4th grade. We're giving an IQ test. Is that about the right time? I think that's about when I got an IQ test in school. And that's supposed to determine how intelligent we are. According to Wechsler's adult intelligence scale, if you score 90 to 110, that's normal. If you score 110 to 120, that's right normal. And if you score 120 to 130, that's superior. And if you score above 130, that is very superior. Intelligence is often understood as how we assimilate, how we store, how we understand our information, knowledge, numbers, and how we also confront our spatial and physical challenges. I wonder, do you know your IQ? Many people are kind of saying no. Probably I thought that you would. I know what mine is, and I can attest to the fact that having a high IQ does not necessarily mean that it makes you wise. Wisdom, something that King Solomon sought after, and something that the writer of Ephesians encouraged, is not at all related to IQ or how intelligent one might or might not be. Wisdom, and I looked this up in Webster's dictionary, means, the first definition is this, is the quality of being wise, the power of judging rightly, following the soundest course of action based on knowledge, experience, understanding, etc. Good judgment, sagacity. The second definition is this, learning, knowledge, and erudition, wise speech. And thirdly, which they have in brackets, it says now rare, is wise discourse or teaching, which I believe probably was about what Solomon was asking for. And the fourthly is a wise plan or course of action. So let me give you what I believe is a wise course of action. This week, I bought a pair of shoes. Well, maybe that doesn't sound so wise. Maybe it sounds just like another woman with a shoe shopping problem. But truth of the matter is, I loathe shopping, and I especially do not like shopping for shoes. It has something to do with my swollen left ankle. Kristen is like, what? So how was this purchasing a pair of shoes a wise decision? Well, this week I read an article that Peter gave me as in the Relevant magazine. It's kind of a Christian maybe some of you are familiar with it. It's young folks. It's so young, I had a hard time reading it. I had to get my reading glasses out. But I read an article about a man who started Tom's Shoes. These are actually affordable, canvas, comfortable shoes that you can order online. And the man who started the company had already had 6 successful businesses, and I think he's only in his mid-30s. But he was not happy, so he did a volunteer trip to Argentina, where he encountered poverty among the villages and especially took compassion on the children, some of whom had never even worn a pair of shoes. Some women in the area, because they had never worn shoes, developed a foot disease that crippled them, allowing them never to be able to marry because they were treated as outcasts, and of course never could have children. The man who had volunteered in this Argentinian village, his name is Blake Bukowski. Blake came back to the United States after that trip and decided to do something to help the village in Argentina where he had volunteered, where he had encountered the barefooted children. Blake put together a unique design of comfortable canvas shoes with a rubber sole and lined them with leather. He said he was only going to make 200 pairs, and if he could sell those, he would then give 200 pairs to the village in Argentina. The problem is, or maybe the amazing thing that happened was this. People loved his shoes, and they were also moved by his mission, his entrepreneurial mission of helping others. His business skyrocketed, and at last count, he had already delivered 140,000 shoes to this village in Argentina and the neighboring areas. He's also now made a plan to do shoe drops in other areas, such as in Africa and other communities that are impoverished. This action is not wise by business standards or worldly standards. It is foolish to give shoes away. But from a business perspective, this seems foolish. But from God's perspective, I believe this is a very wise decision. Listen again to a portion of Solomon's dream. Solomon is dreaming, and in the dream he encounters God, and he asks God this: "Give your servant, therefore, an understanding mind to govern your people, able to discern between good and evil. For who can govern this your great people?" It pleased the Lord that Solomon had asked this. And God said to him, "Because you have asked this, and have not asked for yourself long life or riches, or for the life of your enemies, but have asked for yourself understanding to discern what is right, I now do according to your word. Indeed, I give you a wise and discerning mind." God was pleased that Solomon did not ask for riches for himself, but for a discerning mind, a mind that knows the difference between good and evil, not for himself, but in order to lead his people fairly and justly. In our passage from Ephesians, a similar message is given with an urgency for the early church to use their time, to use our time, focused on God's work, Christ's work in the world, because the writer says, the days are evil. Now, what does that mean? That the days are evil? Well, during the time that the letter of the Ephesians was written, they were under great oppression by the Roman Empire. And the writer seems to